Welcome to Getting to Know Chronicle. I'm John Stoner, and today we're going to use the string function coalesce in a YARA-L rule. The strings.coalesce function returns the value of the first value in the function that does not contain an empty string. Coalesce can work with string values as well as with constants. The syntax for coalesce is strings.coalesce followed by the field or constants of interest. The coalesce function can be used in a number of different ways, but today we're going to use it as an aggregation that we can use for our match variable. Because the success of coalesce is dependent upon working through a set of values and finding one that isn't null to use in our rule, it makes sense to start with a search to show the fields we have available to work with in our rule. Here we have the search criteria that we will be using to develop our rule. We can see that we have file events from our Zeek sensor that use the HTTP protocol and have a principal IP address that starts with 10 dot. In our results, we can see that we have a principal hostname and principal IP as well as a target IP, but no values for the field target hostname. If we look in our event viewer, which is sorted in alphabetical order by field, we don't see target hostname either. Let's take this criteria and apply it to our rule. Here is our YARA rule. I will admit we aren't building a really wild detection today, but we are focusing on a tool that will help build better detections. I promise you that. Notice that in the events section, we brought all of our criteria from the search. To this event section, we added a placeholder variable for principal hostname that we then used in our match section to aggregate our detections. Let's use the principal hostname field as a match variable and aggregate our results over a 5-minute window and test our rule over that same time range we used in our search. All right, that test returned 12 detections with one or more events in each of our detections. Now, suppose we want to group our detections not by the principal, but by the target. This isn't unreasonable. Perhaps we want to understand how many events are associated with a specific target or destination. Let's group by the target hostname just like we did with the principal hostname. We can change our placeholder variable and then update the match section like this. Now, when we test our rule, we get a message of no detections found. This is because the target hostname field is null, as we saw in our search, and we can't match or aggregate on a field and value that doesn't exist. So the detection returns 0 events. That's not great. We don't want our detections not triggering because a field isn't populated for any reason. How can we mitigate this? Well, we can use the strings.coalesce function to create a placeholder variable that can be used as our match variable that would attempt to find a non-null value to use. In the event section, we can call our function and we will include the target.hostname and target.ip in the function. Now, we already know in this example that the hostname does not exist, but perhaps we always want to set an order of precedence. For example, hostname, IP, MAC. We can then take our placeholder variable called $target_match and use that as our match variable and group over 5 minutes. When we test our rule, we get 12 detections and the target_match is the IP address for each one. This isn't a surprise since we know that the target.hostname didn't exist for any of these events. Let's run this one more time. This time, let's remove the requirement that the principal.ip must start with the 10 dot address by commenting out of the rule. When we test, we can see the target match in some cases is the target hostname of WinADFS and other times is the target IP address. Coalesce provides the flexibility and helps us identify and aggregate all of the events meeting our criteria above. Remember, when working with the strings.coalesce function, that it's used with string fields and constants and will return the first non-null value, so the order of the values is important to consider. The syntax is very straightforward. Just order your n number of values carefully. While we only focused on using coalesce in the events and match sections, It can also be used with the outcome section as well. We only focused on a specific example with network-centric events, but this can be applied more broadly to a user, or even a user or asset or cloud resource. The most important thing here is to determine which values are the most important and put those first within the function. If you want to learn more about Chronicle, check out my blog series called New to Chronicle for more handy tips. We have a number of community YARA-L detections at our GitHub site, and we are continually adding more. And don't forget to engage the security community at secopscommunity.com.